Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Feature Crew. If you all remember our video very early when we made the channel about the original GPT-4o launch, you'll remember that we talked a lot about how excited we were about the native multimodality, the native image generation capabilities, which would mean that they could have coherence between images and coherence with the rest of your chat in a way that just text prompts wouldn't allow. So we were very excited for that, and we've been waiting now for a year. And it seems like Google has made the first entry into this space with a new version of Gemini 2.0 Flash. It's another experimental version. We've tried the thinking one before, and now we're going to try the image generation preview. So we're excited to put it to the test.
All right. Making a guest appearance in the channel today is my dog Balder. He's a big old Bernese mountain dog. We figured this would be a good test to just kind of start with some basic image editing. Can we take things out of the background? Can we change the environment a bit? See how it does. It's just a normal, everyday family photo. Try to remove the white bowl in the background. All right, Google, this should be a layup. No problem.
We've seen this kind of feature, for context, built into phones and other sorts of devices already. So we're happy that it was able to do this, right? Where it took that white bowl and removed it from the background while keeping the rest of the image intact and coherent, and even filling in the spot where the bowl was with sort of the bricks that should have been there.
And maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but getting the lines right on the brick is something I'm just happy to see. Because so often in a lot of the image gen models, lines get broken. Bricks especially get wavy.
Now should we see how it can do with like replacing something a little broader, like a material or something? So I'm going to ask it now to try to change the material of the fireplace. This is a broader edit to the image, and it's going to require like changing more of it. So we'll see if it can stay coherent through that. Very interesting. So it kept Chris's dog in the right spot, but it moved the background a little bit around. So my ask to make the fireplace slate actually seemed to translate into making the floor slate. So we're starting to see how this is a preview, right? This is early,
Right.
and even on some of these more simple tests, it can struggle. But that doesn't mean that it can't do more advanced and super impressive things. So we'll continue to ratchet up the difficulty as we proceed here.
Yeah. Let's see if we can teleport Balder into the forest here. Just swap the background to the forest. We'll keep it easy.
So now I'm actually a little curious now that we have like 3 or 4 versions of this image in context where it's, a lot of similar elements. Yeah, see how it's pulling some of the...
Yeah,
right? Like
brought
that
the floor with
table
him.
was present in every image, and so it's having a hard time saying goodbye to it, basically.
Did Balder's expression get a little more dour? Looks,
He
looks
doesn't
a little
like the
sad to
forest.
be in the forest. It's like, did you just throw me out of the house, bro?
Yeah, and you can see it's really starting to kind of break down, right? I mean, the forest is there.
Right. Yeah. It out of the forest. Can we put a hat on Balder? Baseball cap.
So this is where we can test how good the model is at adding objects to the scene.
No eyes for poor Balder. He's having a rough go. What is that? What is the actual brand there?
The brand is Bursau. Seems to be a new dog brand.
Yeah, I mean, the leader in dog hats, some might say.
Right. So you can see, like, it has a lot of the capabilities that we've seen in some of the earlier versions of cross-image generation coherence that were achieved with other methods that weren't, like, built-in native image understanding and generation into the transformer models. So we're seeing some of that parity. We're also seeing that this is still an early release. Sometimes, especially when you give it generic prompts or broad prompts with ambiguity, you end up with these broken situations. But really interesting to see how some of these things that used to require a more specific implementation are starting to be handled by the general transformer models. Chris, thoughts?
I'm curious for your perspective. So we've seen a bunch of success with reasoning models and text-based applications, right? Do we think that there is a future where reasoning models operate over an image on the same principle? Makes an image, reasons over, makes an image, reasons over it. Maybe it makes a bunch of images, but the one it comes back to is the one that actually fulfilled the requirements. Is there a future there?
I think there could be. The best proxy for this without actual image token generation is taking a reasoning model and testing it with SVG generation or something, which we have done on the channel. And the reasoning does seem to allow it to better generate a coherent image. So I'm curious to see if that pattern of behavior will apply to native image tokens as well. But I do see a benefit there.
And I think that's something we expect out of GPT-5, right? We don't know this for sure, but following the pattern, we'd expect that OpenAI's next really big release would give us an insight into this. We'll see.
Yep. So this sort of, I think bringing up GPT-5 is a great point to say, hey, this sort of technology and being able to treat images as context as we do with text and then generate images as we do with text is sort of coming. We're seeing it not just from OpenAI and from Google, but from other companies as well. And so because this is a new paradigm, we want to see how far we can push it and try to see how we can use it as like a tool or an implementation tactic for things that aren't normal everyday image editing tasks. So we'll get that set up, and we'll come back to you with image generation hard mode. So our first challenge mode task is something that should look familiar for regular viewers of the channel. We're giving it this screenshot of an asteroid game that I can't even remember the model that generated this one, but it was generated in a previous video, so we'll link back to that in the description. And we want to see how it can first understand the game and then what it can do to make the graphics more photorealistic. So this is a sort of a proxy for what in industries like NVIDIA DLSS, or there are a bunch of other implementations of this, but basically having some sort of AI in a rendering pipeline. And so if it does well at this task and is able to take a frame from a game and make it way more photorealistic, then it's very encouraging for these sort of LLM real-time upscaling tactics and even using transformer models in the render pipeline for things that we've been using more specific models for in the past.
It really kept the outline.
I'm going to give it another one because I think the asteroid shooting thing really...
Make it photorealistic.
Dude, he just got philosophical with me.
Just try to
It
make
is
the
inherently defined by its lack of detail, and therefore... it would be wrong for it to add detail.
morally wrong.
Oh my god. Oh my god! Wait.
You shall receive.
And okay, well, so it took us a couple prompts, but I think it was on the third prompt, it spit out this, like, pretty photorealistic, completely mapped rendition of our original screenshot with additional generated content on the edges.
Yeah, this is pretty wild.
This is pretty amazing. But I think this really nails the point that I wanted to show here of this game is a very easy to run game, as you can imagine. It's just white lines, right?
Right.
And then if you could get something like this image generation to run in real time, you could upscale a very simple game into something that looks more like this. So this is part of the sort of multimodality future that I'm super excited about, and it's amazing to see this model start to push at it.
That's a great result.
So now let's do the same thing we were doing before and do some like multi-turn iteration, but in this case, because we're doing this sort of world task, let's ask it to iterate and focus more heavily on the world. So I'm going to prompt it to have a mothership warp in and see how it handles that change to the world state. All I needed was that little prompt of the mothership warps in, and now it's starting to do this game logic of like actually managing the game world. And obviously this would fall apart pretty quickly, and sometimes it takes us multiple prompts to get it to work, but just again, it's really showing that future capability.
Can it destroy an asteroid now?
We're asking for some action. The mothership is now going to shoot an asteroid.
All right.
So the problem here is that this is an asteroid that wasn't there, but I could see it that the asteroid came from off screen and then the mothership shot it. I'm starting to just like prompt this as like these would be the options you would get in like an AI dungeon. Wow.
Oh, hey now we're talking.
Right. So now that laser really activated and boom. And you can still, like, it's still maintaining the coherence of, like, this asteroid is still here. It's the proper shape. The asteroid at the bottom is still the proper shape. The ship is where it was in the first place. But with all the action going on the left. It's pretty awesome. I mean, this is starting to look like a comic strip, right?
Okay, we've seen it sort of modify a singular image, just add some pieces to it. I think one of the things that image generation in general has struggled with is having a character and keeping that character coherent between scenes. One way we could think about that is taking a character from a scene and generating a sprite sheet from it. So, okay, given this character, show them in different poses, show them moving through an animation. When you think about it being able to do that, that's a real interesting step into helping you generate things like a game. So given a character, I want to give the character animation. Let's do that with simple 2D animation where you use something called a sprite sheet. Character breaks out into different poses. And for this, we'll use the copyright free now. It's in the public domain. Disney lawyers, don't sue us.
Steamboat Mickey. This is not Mickey Mouse.
Steamboat Mickey.
Steamboat Mickey. Copyright free. So I'll ask for a sprite sheet with a walk animation. First, I'll ask for Steamboat Mickey in a bunch of different poses.
Nice.
So now we get this same character in different situations, sometimes with his hat on, sometimes without the hat, sometimes with other characters doing different poses. And so you can start to see how you could generate a character or create a character or take an existing character and then apply a process like this where then you can start to take your existing character and get them in all these different situations and get coherence between different generations. So now to level it up a little bit, we're going to ask for a bunch of different common objects. So not only different poses, but we want to see the character holding different objects. So we didn't specify the objects, so the model just picked, and I'm not even sure what some of them are. They seem to be potentially a little bit confused.
But it kept the character consistent, which is good.
Yep. Definitely kept the character consistent. Okay, so then The purest, hardest version of this challenge would be a coherent sprite sheet with an animation that we could then play back. Our tests showed that this is still a struggle, but just to show you where it's going, we'll run that prompt. So to try to scope it down, we're asking for specifically 5 frames in this animation.
I had to think about this one. A little reflection on the bottom row. Interesting. So not a complete success, right? This isn't like a Disney animation quality walking animation by any means, but it understood the concept. So we're, like Jacob said, we're glimpsing into the future here, right? As these models improve, we expect this to be something they can do, and that's starts to move you into a world where we can make, you've seen us try to make games on the platform before with some success. If it can generate sprite sheets, then you start having characters that are consistent, that can animate, and then the holy grail of it is characters interacting with each other. That's the common critique of even the higher fidelity AI movies right now, is that characters don't do anything. So you'll see a lot of these AI generated ads or movies, and the characters have trouble interacting with the environment. So expect to see some improvement on that as things like GPT-5 come out, and presumably as this experimental model gets better.
Cool. I've been super impressed so far, like with the caveats that Chris has been saying of it's obviously not ready yet for these super hard situations, and also even in some of the more basic situations, it will still fail. And so it's a glimpse into the future. But as a final sort of peak challenge here, we're going to ask it to take an image of a planet that we generated. I think this was Grok 3's generation in a previous video. And we're going to see how it can like whole scale modify the world and go beyond world understanding and sort of understanding the people world interaction. So I'm going to ask it to add a civilization to this planet, and we'll see how it interprets that and how it tries to accomplish that.
Very spiky.
I'm just going to ask for cities specifically.
There you go.
So we did a couple prompts. I was being a little bit too ambiguous. So this time I actually asked for cities. And while it didn't really get what I was hoping for, which is the understanding of like the terrain scale and the fact that the buildings would probably have to be a little smaller. You have buildings that are bigger than islands here on this planet. But in terms of this being an example of how something as simple as understanding and generating images can be sort of chained together with other types of intelligence to form these pretty complex tasks that if I wanted to generate a planet with buildings on it computationally, that's a lot of work. It's a difficult challenge. And so seeing glimmers of how you can skip those difficult computational challenges with basically heuristics is really interesting for the field.
Absolutely. I mean, super cool to see this. This is well beyond the sort of spray and pray of a Midjourney. I can't tell you how many times I sat in Midjourney trying to change a character's hair color, trying to remove a character from a scene. No success.
No success. Because it doesn't know about the previous image. That's the problem.
Right.
All right, and we got a very dense city here.
Yep.
It does look more realistic.
Yeah. Except for there's windows on the roof, but
Skylight.
a lot of skylights. It's a very bright top floor.
Oh, man. Alrighty. Well, I mean, super exciting stuff. Honestly, we weren't even sure if we were going to make this video, but after sitting down and trying, it became clear how this is actually a pretty significant development. And while it'll be a while before people are using this tool day to day, it really shows us the future of how the larger transformer-based systems are going to evolve to handle more and more tasks. So super exciting stuff. We're going to keep watching. As Chris said, super excited to see how OpenAI challenges this, how the other companies challenge this. If you want to see that, we'll definitely be doing tests. So stick around the channel, subscribe if you want to follow along. And as always, like the video if you liked it. It helps us grow, and definitely let us know as we grow what you want us to cover. Let us know in the comments. We love to hear feedback.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for watching, everybody.